All right. All right, I got 6 o'clock. Let's go ahead and call village board order. Please stand for pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank everyone for their attendance, and if the minutes can reflect the role of the various trustees and department heads. Let's move forward to item 3, entertain a motion for the approval of the 5/20 village board meeting minutes and the file of the 1/9 Community Development Authority, the 4/9 2019 Public Safety Committee, the 4/11 2019 Architectural Review Board, and 4/23 Plan Commission meeting minutes as presented.
I'll make the motion approved. Second that.
Motion is second, as always. Comments, questions, clarifications on the minutes? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Congratulations to everybody who took minutes last month. All right, move on to item 4. Anybody in the audience wishing to be heard on a non-agenda item? Non-agenda. Move forward. Any materials have been presented in the normal fashion. Let's move on to item 6, resolutions, ordinance, action items. Item 8 is a resolution approving the appointment of the municipal judge, Christine Olis. Okay, and that is a resolution.
I'll offer.
Motion. Second.
And Mike or Jesse, why does that come to us? For the purposes of the press. I'm not leading the question or anything at all.
No, not at all. I'll walk right into that. This has been a little bit of time coming here as Judge Steve Kane, who is our current Mid-Meridian Municipal Court municipal judge for Grafton, as well as the other participating communities, was recently elected to Ozaukee County Circuit Court as of this last spring. His term begins, or will start July 31st, and so therefore, knowing we had to, as a municipal court, appoint a new judge, the nominating committee and then the executive committee of the Mid-Meridian Municipal Court, basically representatives of all of the participating communities, got together and interviewed multiple candidates that applied for the job, and Ms. Olis rose to the top. And so therefore, each member community does have to approve a resolution approving and in essence ratifying that appointment made by the municipal court.
All right, offer motion in a second. Any further comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That resolution passes. Move on to item B, report of the Public Safety Committee. Item 1 is a motion for a police presence at Mellapalooza 2019 without charging police overtime to Mel's Charities be approved.
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second.
Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Done.
Thank you very much.
Just get started. Item 2 is a motion to approve the request for the 2019 holidays event to be held on June 29th, 2019. That is presented to be approved.
Make the motion.
Second.
Comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 3 is a motion to approve the refurbishment of tender 866 to Pierce Manufacturing of Appleton, Wisconsin at a cost of $79,710 be approved.
So moved.
Second.
Chief, highlights?
This is the last vehicle that we're going to be making modifications to in our plan, which we started and put in place in 2015. It did come in, the estimate was about $65,000 for the refurbishment. It came in over that, but we believe we're going to be able to have savings in other projects for this year, so we will not exceed our planned capital improvements funding this year. The project largely is to add a large portable tank to the right side of the apparatus, including the hydraulic mounting system that lifts it from the ground and puts it up against the side of the truck. And then they're also going to address a problem we have with the shifting of the water tank on the chassis which is causing periodic failure of the chutes that come out of the side of the rig that dump the water. That and a few other smaller projects are going to be taken, but we believe we're in good shape, and this vendor is the same vendor who built the rig originally and has done the refurbishments on 2 other rigs over the last few years and has done a great job.
Okay, got any questions?
I have a question. Do you have an actual quote from Pierce, or is it just the quote from Reliant?
Reliant is the sales arm of Pierce, so they're a Pierce dealer.
Okay, so can we issue a contract with Pierce when the quote is from Reliant?
It's
Don't we have to have something that has,
I would compare it to buying a car at a local Chevy dealer,
okay?
but you're getting a Chevy from the factory. What we're buying for, this is consistent with what we've done in the past.
No, I mean, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the quote, I'm just saying that there's no tie back to it actually, I mean, who's doing the actual work? Is it Pierce or is it Reliant?
We are paying Reliant, and we pay Reliant, and we enter an agreement with them to complete the work at Pierce. They're a manufacturer's rep.
If I may, this first paragraph under the initial terms and that quote total, the last sentence of that does note that it is delivered to you by Pierce Midwest Refurbishment Facility, Waiwega, Wisconsin. So there is that tie back to Pierce.
Well, it's just saying that it's gonna, that's where you're gonna pick it up. Doesn't, I don't know, I just think we need to have a little bit more detail.
Is the concern the contract language, or is the concern the item for action tonight, the motion to approve for Pierce? I think if that's the case, the minutes can reflect that Reliant is a sales arm of Pierce.
Yeah,
I
if we,
think the board understands that.
if it get, yeah, I mean, I think it should be in the minutes that that there is that tie,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, other comments, questions?
I'd like to make just one general comment about utilizing of savings to provide or cover for overruns or bids that are higher than expected. And this is something that I've seen being done more often in all departments, not criticizing or pointing out the fire department, but and usually it has worked in the past because well, revenues typically are usually less in departments than what are projected or estimated, and expenses have been less. But the more often we use those savings to cover other bids that didn't meet what we thought or estimated, unless the revenues are where they're estimated to begin with, we may wind up short at the end of the year. So it's something we need to be mindful of and keep an eye on.
I think that you are correct. That's from a village's perspective. Obviously, we do have an overall budget, an overall capital budget that the expectation is that as a community, as a village, that we adhere to. As far as individual projects, I think it's fair to say that there will always be variances between some projects will come in and under and some will come in over. The goal of, obviously, at the end of the year is that we meet the overall objective of the capital budgets as a whole as we determine them to be at the beginning of the year. I think it would be almost impossible for us to determine to the dollar what every project is going to come in at. So I mean, I get what you're saying. We do have to do our due diligence.
So what we see and get reported often is the expenses. Is it above or below budget? But we never hear any reports on how our revenues or income. Our revenues are they in accordance with projections, or how far are we behind? And we need to be mindful of that before we start approving some of these, switches and utilizing of revenues or savings in other bids, so.
So maybe that's not a bad idea, maybe on a 6-month basis or something like halfway through the fiscal year, things like that. Maybe a general summary of where we stand on revenues to projections wouldn't be a bad thing.
I think so.
If I could just quickly dovetail on this, at a staff level, Paul and I met with Chief as this item was coming forward prior to public safety, and we discussed that strategy, if you will, of making sure that his oversight of his capital budget does meet or beat that bottom line, as far as not exceeding that bottom line of his capital allocations for this year. And Chief's very confident that he can exercise those savings from other smaller projects to make up that difference between that original estimate and what is being quoted here. But that discussion, if you will, did transfer over into public safety as well, when we talked about that bottom line of Chief's capital budget, making sure that is met, if not, and clearly not exceeded, even considering this project came in above estimate.
Thank you.
Other discussion? Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Item 4 is a motion to approve the purchase of a video server through Kyoto Computer Services for a price of $13,609.06. Be approved.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Chief?
This video server is actually the repository of the evidentiary information that we gathered through the in-squad video and our body-worn cameras. We had to adjust on the fly, per se, in so much as our body-worn cameras and our new video systems are high definition, and they take up a significantly higher amount of storage and require a significantly more robust server and its specs. We spent a great deal of time reviewing it, comparing it, and purchasing manual guidelines and recommending the lowest bid.
Okay. Motion second, comments, questions on this item?
I have, I actually have one. On the Taylor quote, it says, all prices subject to confirmation at time of order. I want to make sure this is a firm fixed price, not to exceed.
I believe it should be, because off the top of my head, it's a June 14th
Right.
expiration. So I'm confident that it won't be higher,
Okay,
because that's what they gave us, and that's what we stand with.
okay, because it is a little, I mean, it's not the lowest bid.
Yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
Flip that page over.
Right, but this doesn't include any software. The Taylor one doesn't include any software. So you're comparing apples and oranges.
I believe it does.
Yeah.
The
No, it does
impression I
not.
got that,
Well,
the impression I got from speaking to the vendor was
Yeah.
that it was a turnkey plug and play.
well, you know,
And if it's not, certainly we'll readdress that.
you got somebody in the audience who'd like to say something.
Yes, sir.
John Meineke, 519 Greenfield Drive. I guess to address that question, I guess for full disclosure, I am a member of JTA LLC. I did prepare the quote. There's two significant differences between these two quotes. One is the Taylor removed SQL Server from their quote.
Can I interrupt you for just a second? Mr. Harbeck, I would prefer that you do not videotape my minor child.
Yeah, you have a
I've
problem?
only got your husband in the video right now. You want to come look?
No, I don't.
All
Okay.
right, let's listen.
Anyway, now that the lawyer's videotaping it, the issue becomes is that one vendor was given special consideration, one vendor was given a 24 terabyte requirement, one vendor was given a 8-core requirement, and additionally, one vendor was obviously communicated with quite extensively. So, based on the fact that they're not including SQL in their quote, because if you review their previous quote and you review their last quote, SQL is conspicuously missing. So basically what you've done is you're buying a library, you have the books and the video, but you don't have a building. So I guess, I know the fix is in, and I know that you're going to approve it anyway, and I know that Taylor is the vendor of choice for this village, so just consider me complaining.
No,
Thank you. Have a good day.
And Taylor got an additional week their quote is dated a week.
Yeah, because I know that what happened was is that the village, you guys reviewed my quote with Taylor, and then you gave them an extra week because you provided them those 4 questions that you provided, and Jesse provided back to them and directed Chief Wenton to provide back to them, so which then they modified their quote. And I know the fix was in, so just, you don't even need to explain. And since Lisa was involved in the whole process, based on over 2 months ago, her discussion in an open session of this very topic, it's obvious. So, thank you.
So, thank you very much. I think that a good point is, and maybe we need to include that in the recommendation, is to validate that all licensing is included. My feedback to staff was we should not be having the people who are bidding creating the technical specifications. What we need to do, and Jesse, call me out if I'm wrong, is when we have a project like this, we get the specifications from the software provider and says, you tell us exactly what you want, we will bid it out. And that is a direction that we definitely need to go moving forward.
The Panasonic spec required dual processor.
So I think that is one of those things where the vendors need to provide, this is what we need for storage, this is what we need for core, this is what we need for memory, this is what we need. And it shouldn't be up to the people that are doing the bidding to determine what the solution is. It should be up to the software and the hardware vendors.
Agreed.
That's what you did.
It creates transparency.
Yeah.
So, final comment? Yes, sir?
I just have a question. Since this involves a bid from Taylor and a competing bid is being made and attempted for Mr. Meineke's company, who's married to Miss Meineke, I am curious as to how Miss Meineke can discuss this or vote on it. It seems to me to be a clear conflict of interest when she is advocating or supporting something that's not her husband's proposal.
So the question that was brought up was really one of clarification on licensing, which is, in my mind, fair. I think from what I'm hearing, and I agree, is that we do need to make sure that due diligence is done. And if the people, I don't know who made the motion in a second, but I would like to amend the approval to contingent upon all licensing being included in the comprehensive bid. Is that okay with the persons who made the motion in the second? And if it doesn't, then I think the whole thing basically comes back.
You guys made the motion?
I made the motion.
Trustee Harbeck, motion, trustee Gassard, second.
Right, I mean, and if it doesn't, then it needs to come back anyway.
Right.
So either way.
Because licensing is important. I mean, we're gonna pay for it one way or another. It's either included or we're gonna have to purchase it later. All right, so motion and second are okay with those changes?
I'm okay, but I have another question, comment. So I know when this was first discussed at staff level, at other levels, there were a number of different, I guess, bids or quotes from Mr. Meineke. So he started out very low, and I believe he had 2 additional amounts of money that, in the end, the end amount was what we see here before us. So I believe the first bid was something in the range of $6,000 to $7,000. And the second time, it was something like $9,000. So I guess in my opinion, how are we, could I just interrupt you? Well, I would like everybody to hear. So if you're talking to President Bronco, he can't hear. So I guess I would like to know, how many chances does somebody have to put their real bid in?
All right, okay, this kind of gets back to the point, and I'm not gonna allow any more discussion because this was a decision that I made to staff. I says, you cannot have the contractors or the bidders drive the technology. The vendor has to provide the specifications, so this will be the only time I expect this type of situation to occur. This will not happen again. Okay, I have a motion second with the amended approval. Final comments and discussion?
Could you read back the motion?
Motion by trustee Harbeck, seconded by trustee Gasser, to approve the purchase of a video server through Taylor Computer Services for a price of $13,609.06 as presented. Approval contingent on all licensing being included.
Mike?
Is it-
Trustee Meineke, you're gonna recuse, are you gonna?
I am abstaining, yes, sir.
Okay. Question?
Just wanted to read back.
Yep. Okay, motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
One abstain.
Motion passes. Move on, item 7, department and officers reports. We have 2 chiefs with us tonight. Any questions for them? Any questions for Jesse? Anything you wish to pass back to the board?
If I may. Today, we were fortunate enough to swear in our newest police officer, Tyler Taubenheim. He's from the Sheboygan area. We had a very nice ceremony this morning. I think he's going to work out just fine. I want to just point out to the board and reassure the board we've been very blessed and fortunate with the caliber of candidate that we continue to attract and put on our department to serve this community.
And are they getting younger every time?
I can't even comment on that because every time I look at a date of birth, I have to take a look at where I was out of school or, you know, things like that. But I think we're doing very well, and I'm very pleased.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Any feedback? All right, let's move on to item 8, licenses. Item A is approval to issue a operator's license as presented.
Make the motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion and second. The individuals, their places of employment are listed. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item B is a motion to deny issues of operators licenses to Taylor Cross, and that's based on recommendations from the police chief.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Move on to item 9, report of the bills. Entertain a motion for the approval of village expenditures, $431,583.90.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that. Comments, questions on the bills?
I just have one. The Agilex packet, the second packet, it's on page 1, it's with the Galls LLC for the police uniform allowance. Again, I just want to be specific that the contract says clothing allowance, so I would rather see this flashlight holder come out of a more accurate account. So for that one reason, I am going to not approve that. But that's the only item.
Other comments, questions?
I had just a question on for Donner Incorporated. Which street construction is that? Is that for? It's on page 3.
Oops, that's the wrong page 3.
I assume it's 17th, but it's not clear.
Right, there's only so much space we have as a descriptor. It is a progress payment, if you will, as they reach different benchmarks, and yes, it would primarily be for the work on 17. Yep.
Okay, with that being said, motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes, one nay on that one item.
Move on to item 10, entertain a motion to convene a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business, whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, sale of land to Newman Development related to Riverbend Meadows subdivision, and the amendment of a pre-annexation agreement with The Energies and related agreements.
I'll make it. Second.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
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 We're in closed session. Jesse, how long do you expect closed session to take?
15, 20 minutes?
15, 20 minutes, and we have potential action items afterwards?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you very much.